I'd like to show you 3 games from day 2 of the Chess 960 event in St. Louis. If you want to catch up with the Topalov-Kasparov match, then do click on the link above where you'll see my video on a game there. And there's also a really entertaining game between Hikaru Nakamura and Peter Svidler. Again, click on the link somewhere above there and you'll get to that video. But here I'm going to show you a game from the match between Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, the French #1 player, and Sam Shankland, who is currently the US champion. It's great to see Sam playing in St. Louis, and I think he thoroughly deserves to be there. But he's got a tough match against Vachier-Lagrave, who is a noted expert in rapid and particularly blitz play. And Sam suffered a bit on day 1. Let's see what happens on day 2. This was the first of their rapid play games. So you can see the position that was drawn out of the bag. Here we've got the rooks in the corner as usual, but then the biggest difference, of course, is that the bishops and knights are in slightly odd positions. Now, many of these Chess 960 games, with the skill of the players, normally tend towards a fairly orthodox or familiar kind of position. But this game was wacky from start to finish. Okay, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave with the white pieces played a pawn into the middle of the board. Likewise with Sam Shankland. Now we saw Topalov played here the pawn fought to e4, but instead Vachier-Lagrave played f3, which is logical, to support the pawn push, but also to open up the bishop's diagonal, and that means after the bishop moves, then white can castle in this slightly unorthodox fashion. And Sam plays in exactly the same way. Knight d3, knight into the middle, all seems fine. And knight d6, so players following each other so far. Now e4. And here is where things start to vary. So instead of holding the position, the central position, I guess you've got to watch out for this move, e5. Sam exchanges pawns, giving up his center, and puts his bishop on c4. So this is a slightly strange maneuver, giving up the center and putting this bishop out, moving right into enemy territory. So Maxime has a nice center, but his king is slightly exposed. It almost reminds me, at least from white's point of view, of a kind of king's gambit position, actually. So what do we do about this errant bishop that's suddenly flown into enemy territory with a pin, it has to be said? Well, you could just play bishop f2 here and get castled, bring the king out of the way. But knight e3 from Vachier-Lagrave, okay, reasonable, attacking the bishop, which of course drops back, maintaining the pin. But now this threat to the pawn has to be dealt with. Could advance. This might be the most sensible continuation. But you have to watch out for this check. Notice the wacky castling. But this, I think, would be a reasonable continuation for both sides. It's probably around about even. But yeah, still slightly odd position of all the pieces. In particular, these bishops have yet to come into the game, so it's very strange. But I can sort of understand why Vachier-Lagrave didn't want to do this, because the pawn looks kind of a bit loose. But instead, well, he experimented. He played the knight to f5, which kind of looks okay, at least at first glance. The queen protects the e-pawn now. But after this next move, well, it's clear that in fact this was an incorrect decision to play the knight to f5. Queen b5, I mean, this is really, really strange chess. So suddenly the queen flies into the position, simply attacking 2 pawns. And this double attack is very unfortunate for white. And here Vachier-Lagrave really gambles. It's possible to kind of gambit, sacrifice one of these pawns. But yeah, it's not simple to see how you do it. Well, we'll look at the game continuation in a second, where Vachier-Lagrave tries a kind of gambit, but maybe the best way to do it is with a4. Now, if queen takes pawn on f5, then bishop f2, and then after this, well, we castle in this strange way, and I think white has some compensation here. I think I'd prefer to have the pawn, but still, it's reasonable. Or queen takes pawn on b2, attacking the rook. The rook moves to a2. That was the point of playing the pawn to a4. So it's a very strange chess. And the queen goes back, and I guess we would do the same thing. Probably move the bishop out and then get castled. And it's a very odd position. I mean, look at that bishop on b1. It's very strange. But black's position is also strange. So some compensation there. But instead, Vachier-Lagrave played fairly quickly bishop f2, allowing queen takes pawn, and here he simply castled. Watch out, blink and you'll miss it. So the king goes to g1 and the rook goes over. That's part of the rules. And he gave up the rook in the corner. So this is like a 19th century romantic school interpretation of the modern day chess 960, giving up a rook. Now, what he's hoping to do is somehow get an attack on the king and combine it with perhaps trying to trap the queen in the corner. So at the moment you can see, in fact, there's no way out for the queen. So Vachier-Lagrave played c4. Now he's trying to speed things up, giving up a pawn. Well, who cares when you're a rook down? And that means that after this move, he gains a tempo in some way. But b5, very coolly played by Shankland. The bishop is actually very strong on this square. Controls lots of important squares, not just down this diagonal, but on all sides of the board. So b5, excellent move, locking the bishop in. Rook e1. Now, this looks terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. However, only if you're not familiar with the rules of chess 960, where in fact this king can castle. There we go, and gets out of trouble. Now Vachier-Lagrave took on e7, c6. Remember, white is a rook down here. Excellent move, c6, preparing to bring the bishop into the game. Knight comes to c5. Okay, so with the queen way out of play, then it could be possible to throw in some move like this, and there could be trouble. However, bishop f7 is a very strong move indeed, so that black is ready to play rook e8, and now white is bust. Knight e6 played. Rook e8, good move. The queen going back to a3. So white returns to another strategy. His attack hasn't worked, but he still has a hope of trapping the queen. So what he wants to do is move the bishop out the way. Let's say to d3, and then the queen will be trapped, as the queen on a3 defends the pawn on a2. However, Shankland keeps his cool and plays a5. Good move. So that means if, well, let's say bishop c2, doesn't matter, b4, attacking the queen. So don't worry about this. And then the queen can just come out to c3, and black is still a rook up. So Vachier-Lagrave tried one more little trick, d5. So he wants to bring this bishop to d4 to trap the queen like this, but after bishop a7, that really did snuff out any play. Once these bishops are exchanged, then the rook will no longer be defended, and there really is no chance of attacking the queen. In fact, the queen looks good. Yeah, b4 coming, followed by queen c3, and black is simply a whole rook up. It's curious how this knight never actually moved, and cuts the connection between the rooks. However, it doesn't really matter in this position. So a very strange game indeed. And as I said, slightly unusual for Chess 960 in that it remained completely random. Normally these games tend towards a more normal position. But, well, I'm really glad for Sam Shankland, who, with that victory, brought himself back into the match. That was the first rapid play game. Vachier-Lagrave won the second. Then they drew a blitz game, and Sam Shankland won the last blitz game. So that really brings him back into the match, and the scores have evened up a little bit. So, yeah, very pleased that Sam is doing well. If you want to take a look at the other videos, as I said, just check out the tab above. And, well, I do hope you're enjoying this novelty of Chess 960.